Good afternoon. Welcome to the August 14th, 2018 Glendale Housing Authority meeting being called to order at 3:04 p.m. May I please have the roll call?
Authority members Devine.
Here.
Garpetian.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Parazian.
Here.
Sinanian.
Here.
Chair Alajanian.
Present. May I please have your report?
The agenda for the August 14, 2018 regular meeting of the Glendale Housing Authority was posted on Friday, August 10th, 2018 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
What is next, please?
Next is approval of minutes.
I'll move for A.
Second.
Hearing no objection, the minute stands approved as submitted. What is next, please?
Next is oral communication, and there were no cards submitted for this portion.
Are there any authority member staff comments?
Before we go to that, there is actually one item on the business agenda. At 6A is the Director of Community Development regarding annual submission of the Section 8 Management Assessment Program CMAP self-certification for fiscal year 27-2018. And A1 is a motion approving the annual submission of the CMAP self-certification for fiscal year 2017-18 to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair and members of the Housing Authority, if I can ask Peter Zovak to come up to give you a brief report. Peter?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the Authority, Community Development staff is seeking authorization to file the annual Section 8 Management Assessment Program. It's an assessment that we are required to perform on Section 8 operations for HUD. Our assessment of our operations, which is based on 14 indicators dictated by HUD to review, has determined that, in our opinion, the Housing Authority of the City of Glendale is, again, a high-performing agency. So we are seeking authorization to send that off to HUD. They will review the information. They will review statements being provided by independent auditors, and then they will make a determination whether or not they concur with us at a later time.
Thank you. And our score is 135 out of
145, and the only reason we didn't get the extra 10 points is it's in reference to a program that we don't operate here in Glendale. So,
What program is that?
Family Self-Sufficiency. It's a program that we used to have over the years, and we've had those participants graduate over time.
Okay,
Does it not make sense for us to have that? I just don't know enough about the program, that's why I'm asking.
No, it's not necessarily a program being offered again by HUD, necessarily, just that they're asking that those that had it finish out their program participants. It requires a lot of much more intensive case management on these particular applicants that enroll. Okay. We'll look at it again and consider it again if and when the opportunity might arise in the future.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, I just want to say that 90% is considered high achievers, and we are at 100%. So that's even better, even more excellent. Thank you. Good job.
I have a couple of questions for Mr. Zolak, Mr. Chair.
please.
I asked for a brief report on the number of people who are on the waiting list for Section 8, on the ones that have 5 points and 4 points. So I received the email this afternoon. So we have about 70 or 75 people, 70 to 80 people who have 5 points, and about 800 people who are on the waiting list and they have about 4 points. Something in that range, right?
Correct.
Out of 2,300.
2,231 on the waiting list.
2,231 on the waiting list. So I think it's time for us to start looking into creating a fund, so we will be able to help the people on the waiting list that have 5 points or 4 points, try to clear that these two groups basically, because most of them are seniors, and we all know that seniors are in a tough economic situation at this time, and I think we need to start looking into creating a fund for them. So we'll be able to do whatever Section 8 is doing with the rest of our voucher holders. We can do the same thing for the seniors who are on the list. This is a suggestion, and I wanna bring this up and see if there is a second from one of my colleagues to look into creating a fund for Section 8.
A city-funded fund or
Yes.
a private-funded fund?
City-funded fund.
So I would second it.
I just say be cautious. Just be cautious with something like that. I mean, once we start pouring money into our budgeted money into housing subsidies directly.
It's just a study we can do and bring a report back in the future, near future.
Based on the request that's being made by Housing Authority Member Garapetian and a second by Mr. Agajanian, Chair Agajanian, for us to bring a report back in terms of a study, we can do that based on the resources that we have in place in our budget, and we would be looking at the general fund basically in terms of funding sources. Because outside of the general fund, based on city funding in general services, there would be no other funding outside of what we receive from HUD. And so, as you all know, you just adopted a budget that came forward, and the resources that are there are allocated to the general fund departments in terms of the services that are being provided by the 15 different departments. We can most definitely provide you with a look at that, but outside of being able to cut into those resources and appropriations based on the funding allocated within those departments, I'm not sure how we would be able to create such a fund. As you all know, there is a measure that is placed on the November 6th ballot. And depending on priorities of the council, and if the measure passes down the road, the authority and the city council has the option of making decisions about what those priority levels are and funding levels that can be placed depending on what those priorities are. But it would also depend on those priority levels year after year and the subsidy of housing voucher programs. And I would caution us in terms of going down that path, but we can always bring a report that provides all of that information.
Right. I just want to have a report that how many people are in there, a complete report. Are they mostly for 1 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms? How many of them are disabled, and so on and so forth. So we can make a decision at that time. We created a fund for CalPERS and put $30 million, $25 million in there. I think we can find a way to create a fund for to at least clear a portion of our Section 8 housing waiting list.
Well, I was just going to say that I agree with the city manager that perhaps we can look at this after the November ballot, and when we know if we have those funds, and then we can decide, get this report, and decide if that's a priority, if that's something that we want to do. Just my suggestion.
The report can be done. I mean, the report doesn't have to wait another 6 months or so. But nonetheless, you have the directions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from city council members? Okay. All right, staff? Okay. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
So,
Did we get a motion to approve?
please stand. Okay. I open the meeting.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Okay. Authority members Devine,
Yes.
Garpetian,
Yes.
Najarian.
Is this a roll call or do?
This is not a roll call. This
Here.
is,
For the item.
no.
Oh, he's
reopen,
right.
don't
We
you
need
need
to,
to-
we need to take roll call.
Need to take a roll
I
if
mean,
you
I
reopen.
can, but I think that everyone's still
Here
here.
and yes.
Thank you. And Parazian,
Yes.
Sinanian,
I'm here as well, and yes.
Karajanian.
Here and yes.
Great.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.
So we